And then one thing that you will learn about 2-5 is that I keeps it real. No, I will tell you when I was right. I will tell you when I was wrong. So when it comes to college football, I got some things right and I got some things wrong. So let's talk about it for a minute. We'll come back to the playoff later because that was my baby, and the committee screwed me over, but we'll get into that. So taking it from the top, over in the SEC preseason, my pick was Bama over Georgia. Now, there was a point where I had LSU over Georgia to start out the season. But then I sat down and I thought about it. When I went through my tracker, if you will, I had LSU and Florida State both making the playoff. I had Florida State beating LSU week 1, but then LSU winning out after that. But then I had to think about it because my tracker was doing some things. And I also picked Texas over Bama, but I had to look back at it. And I said, hold on. Is Bama going to lose twice at home in the same season? So I had to readjust and come out with my own thing and tell the tracker, chill out. So I picked Bama over Georgia. Like I mentioned in the last segment, Georgia is not who everybody thinks that they are. They were very fortunate this year that they didn't play anybody until late in the season, I guess, because they didn't even go on the road until week 5 against Auburn. They played UAB and some other, nondescripts before that. They finished at Tennessee, at Georgia Tech, and then, of course, the SEC title game against Bama. So it's not a matter of Georgia ran into Bama and all of a sudden they're not good and all that kind of stuff. Like, no, I'm not doing any of that. I just didn't think that there was anybody that could beat Georgia on their schedule in the regular season. Not because of Georgia, but because of them. It was because of them. Now, with Bama, I thought there was a chance. I mentioned it. I thought there was a chance LSU could beat them. I thought there was a chance Tennessee could beat them. But both of those games were at Bryant-Denny. And being that I thought and I felt that Texas would beat Alabama, which they did in Tuscaloosa, I just couldn't see them losing more than once at home. It just wasn't. It was more of a probability thing. And then, of course, we saw LSU's defense. And we saw that Tennessee, we saw Joe Milton is not Hendon Hooker. So, so that is the one conference title game that I got both participants right. For the rest of them, except for one, I got at least one of the two teams. So let's go on with it. Over to the Pac-12. Told everybody preseason, I am in love with the Washington Huskies. Besides the purple and gold that looks so beautiful. If you knew me as a kid, there were 4 teams that I followed. Florida State was always my baby. Still is, or 5 teams, I'm sorry. Florida State was my baby. Always the Maryland Terps because I'm from Maryland. So, repping the home team. Colorado, Texas A&M, and Washington. I grew a little hate for Texas A&M because of Jimbo, but now my oldest is going to be a student there soon. So, I guess I should not hate them. But anyway, Washington, that was my pick to win the Pac-12 this season. Only problem is the same way that I felt about Georgia is how I felt about Oregon. I felt that Oregon was being overrated. I felt that Oregon was being too valued. I love Dan Lanning. He's one of my favorite coaches in the sport right now. We're playing for wins. They're playing for clicks. That's my guy. But I just didn't think that they measured up. So I thought, and no, before you go there, it was not USC. Because I told everybody, look at the schedule. USC had their bye in week 3. And then they had a stretch where they went to South Bend, came home for Utah, played Cal, then go Oregon, Washington, got UCLA at the end. So I thought that USC would lose at least 3 games. Now, obviously, they did worse than that. But I just wasn't on the USC hype train because as much as I love Caleb Williams, that defense, need I say more? I mean, they gave up 41 to Colorado. Need I say more? But my surprise team, I told everybody preseason, look out for Arizona because I like what Coach Jed Fish is doing there. But that's still not the surprise team that I had in the Pac-12 title game. The team that I had in the Pac-12 title game was the Beavers, Oregon State. And I knew that they played Washington towards the end of the regular season. So I had them beating Washington in Corvallis and then Washington getting their revenge in the end. Right? So came close. If Oregon State would have done what I thought they would have done, they would have played Oregon with a chance to go to the Pac-12 title game, but wasn't to be. Congratulations, Washington. ACC. I picked FSU to win the ACC. I did not pick Louisville to go to the title game, even though I should have, because I made a separate video, that you'll find on YouTube called Who is this year's TCU? And the answer to my question was Louisville. And the reason that I answered Louisville was because of their schedule. They didn't play FSU. They didn't play Clemson. They didn't play North Carolina. I just thought they would slip up somewhere else, but they made it through. I picked them to beat Notre Dame, but I just thought they were going to lose somewhere else, namely at North Carolina State on a Friday night. They won that game 13-10, got out of there by the skin of their teeth. But I had Florida State playing Clemson. I had Clemson beating Florida State on September 27th in Death Valley. And then I had Florida State winning a rematch against Clemson in the ACC title game. Obviously, that didn't work out that way, but Florida State won the ACC. Congratulations, Seminoles. Congratulations, Bama. I forgot to say that before y'all think I'm a hater. All right, the Big Ten. I had Michigan winning the Big Ten. I had Wisconsin winning the West because I knew that Iowa couldn't score. I knew that Minnesota lost their quarterback. I knew that Illinois lost Chase Brown, and I just don't trust Luke Altmaier. And we saw the backup come in and throw for 500 yards, so I wasn't necessarily wrong about that. Northwestern, just like everybody else, I'm not going to sit up here and say I thought Northwestern would be good. I thought they would be at the bottom. I thought that Coach Ryan Walters, would have Purdue competitive. But I just thought that, and I love Coach Luke Fickell. And to be honest with you, that was the only reason I put Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game was because of Luke Fickell, the respect that I have for Luke Fickell. Now, with that being said, they struggled early with Buffalo. Should have saw the signs on the wall. I picked them to beat Ohio State. Obviously, that didn't happen because I didn't believe in Ohio State. Not that I didn't believe in them. I shouldn't say that. But I had them at 10-2. So I'm not going to sit up here and say I didn't believe in them as in they were going to be 7-5. When does Ohio State do that? But I had them losing to Michigan and I had them losing to Wisconsin. So 10-2. I never believed in Penn State, which is tough for me because I like James Franklin, but James Franklin gets a little bit of that Mario Cristobal in him in these big games where he wants to sit on the ball. He doesn't want to take risk adverse, and it just bites him in the butt, right? I mean, we're talking about a whole different game in Columbus. Remember, Penn State ran a fumble back 56 yards for a touchdown, but it was called back because of a defensive holding call. That play stands. Whole different ball game, and maybe Ohio State goes 10-2. But instead, Penn State goes 10-2. And wouldn't you know it, they're going to go play Ole Miss in a bowl game. 2 overachieving, underachieving teams. What does that mean? They are overachieving because every year, all I hear about is this is Penn State's year. This is the year Penn State is going to beat either Ohio State or Michigan. Some people had them beating both this year, making the playoff. Ole Miss every year. They're good. They're good. Stop hating on them 2-5. And I say, I'm not hating. Just beat somebody. Now, obviously, beating Alabama is a tall task. Nobody said it isn't. But if you're that team that everybody thinks that you are, can you do it more than, say, twice in 15 years or something like that? Like, we do know that Ole Miss has never, and I mean never, played for the SEC title, right? We know that, right? What is it? Ole Miss, A&M, Vanderbilt, Kentucky have never played for the SEC title. That means Vanderbilt has done it. Arkansas has done it. Mississippi State has done it. So, Ole Miss, I need you to show me. And what you can do is go beat Penn State in this bowl game. James Franklin, what you could do is go out and beat this SEC team in a bowl game. How about it? Can you do it? Now, Big 12. I had Texas in the Big 12 title game. I didn't have them winning. So this is the first of my misses as far as the conference champion. I had the defending champion, Kansas State, knocking off Texas. I had Texas beating them in the regular season, Kansas State winning the rematch. Almost got the Kansas State win, missed field goal, fourth down in overtime, all that good stuff. K-State came close. K-State fought. But K-State is on my radar for next year. Avery Johnson taking over. Will Howard just jumped in the transfer portal. So I'm looking forward to this new edition of K-State, even though word on the street is Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator, is going to go join Coach Mike Elko down at A&M. So, that's going to be a big loss for them. I just think that at this point, Chris Klieman has just established an identity in Manhattan. Sorry, I almost said Lawrence. But he's established an identity over in the Little Apple. And I think Kansas State is going to be a team to be reckoned with as long as he's there. But let's give all the credit in the world to the Longhorns. They went into Tuscaloosa, as we said, in week 2, beat on Bama, beat them by 10 points. There was that argument, if it came down to those two, would Bama get in over them? I truly believe Bama would have, just because their name is Bama and because they beat Georgia. So, luckily we didn't have to go that route, because I would have been on here bitching about a team getting in over a team they lost to at their place. We saw this back in 2011 when LSU went into Bama 9-6. Then Bama got the rematch in the national title game during the BCS. But Texas, the only loss was to Oklahoma. Even that came on a last-minute drive. Dylan Gabriel played his heart out. One of those games where Texas didn't look bad or Texas didn't do anything wrong per se, but the other team has talent as well, and sometimes you lose. Sometimes the other team makes plays even when you're in decent defensive position. It just be like that sometimes. But Texas is very live in the college football playoff. Want y'all to know that. All right. Now, that's your Power 5, taking it to the G5. Back to my streak of, I got one of the teams right. I had UTSA beating Tulane in the conference title game. We saw that game play out down in Louisiana, and it was not close. So I apologize, Tulane, for that. Congratulations, Texas, by the way. Tulane, Michael Pratt, the only loss going into the AAC title game this year was to Ole Miss when Michael Pratt was injured and didn't play. But then they ran into SMU, who came out of nowhere, going into the last game of the season. All three teams, UTSA, Tulane, and SMU, were all 3-0. Oh, I'm sorry, 7-0 in the conference. SMU didn't play either one. Preston Stone broke his leg. But yet somehow SMU overcame, and now they are going home. AAC champion, probably should have been in the New Year's Six. But you know what? It's all good, Mustangs, because they're joining the ACC next year. So if you get through that, you'll be in a New Year's Six, and you might be in the playoff. All right. Now, Mountain West, I had Boise over Fresno. So I got the champion right. Boise beat UNLV, who came out of nowhere, even got the win over Vanderbilt, SEC team. Coach Barry Odom, hats off. He had a great scheme that took the Mountain West by surprise. Fresno State, I had them going 10-2. I had them losing to Purdue, which they won, and I had them losing to Wyoming, which they did. So, it just didn't work out that way, but Boise is your champion. Congratulations, Boise. Conference USA. This is where the bias takes over and bites you in the ass because I chose my Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, my alma mater, to beat Liberty. So I had Liberty correct. It wasn't even close. Liberty just took over the league their first year in the conference. They made it to the New Year's Six where they're going to play the Ducks now. Only problem is they didn't even play a Power 5 team this year. There are 133 FBS teams. Liberty strength of schedule, 133. It's like that. Sun Belt. Whew. This was probably my worst as far as this was the one conference that I mentioned that I didn't have either team correct, but it was also bad. It was bad. So I had Coastal Carolina in the championship game. Obviously, I didn't know that Grayson McCall was going to get hurt. I knew James Madison wasn't eligible, or else I would have picked James Madison. So Appalachian State ended up in the title game against Troy. So I had an Alabama school in the Sun Belt title game. It was just South Alabama. I had them beating Tulane to start the season. I had them beating Oklahoma State. They did not beat Tulane at all. At all. Didn't even pinch them. But they did get that 33-7 win over the Cowboys. That played for the Big 12 title, right? So South Alabama was my biggest miss. I still love Coach Kane Womack. Look out for him in future years coming to a Power 5 school near you. I'm surprised John Summerall didn't get the Duke job. Sounds like it's going to be Manny Diaz. But Troy, they just run the Sun Belt. All roads lead through Troy, Alabama. Now, finally, playoff picks. Where did I end up with my playoff picks? Wouldn't you know, I seeded my playoff. I picked a national champion. So how did I do? 1 seed, Michigan. 2 seed, Washington. Sound familiar? 3 seed, Alabama. 4 seed, Florida State. So Michigan was the only team that I had going undefeated. Obviously, Washington finished undefeated with them along with Florida State and Liberty. But I had Michigan beating Florida State in the first round of the playoff. I just thought they were going to be too physical for Florida State. And I had Bama beating Washington because I thought Bama would be able to slow them down. And then in my national title game, I had Michigan over Alabama. Ain't that something? Michigan over Alabama. And where are we now? In the first round of the playoffs, 1 seed against the 4 seed, Michigan against Alabama. So a round early, but hey, I said that matchup was going to happen. And then we got the 2-3, Washington against Texas, rematch from last year's Alamo Bowl live here in San Antonio, 27-20 win by Washington. So picks will come later. I will give you my picks later, myself and Mr. Logical. You will get bowl previews from me and all that good stuff. So I'm holding myself accountable. So I want you to tell me your biggest hits and misses on the season in the comments. Like, review, subscribe to